Everyone already knows that Georgia coach Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football, but I think it's safe to say that he's the best recruiter in college football right now. He's built a monster. He does everything you'd expect a great head coach to do, not only on the field, but on the recruiting trail as well, building number one classes, taking those classes and leading them to national championships. Kirby Smart's doing it all right now. And earlier this week in his Tuesday press conference, he talked a little bit about why he is so good on the recruiting trail and why he and his staff always, I don't want to say always, but they almost get just about every single guy that they want. Now, maybe that's a little over the top, but I cover recruiting. So I know they don't miss on many guys. And you would expect them to push for the number one recruiting class in the country every single year. I do. And Kirby kind of talked about it today. Someone asked him about KJ Bolden's recruitment. Obviously picked Florida State over Georgia, I think right before his senior season, maybe a week into it. It was about mid-August, if I remember correctly. But then Georgia won out in the end and got him to sign with Georgia right before the early signing day period. But here's what Kirby had to say about his recruitment. He said, I don't see kids as committed to other places because they're not. They're not signed. I just know that we recruit good football players. We evaluate each player the same, whether they're committed to us or not, or committed to anyone or not. If there's interest in conversation from them and there's visits where they come to our campus, you just stay very consistent. We were consistent with KJ. The recruitment never stopped. And I told him that from the day he committed to Florida State to the day he came to us, that we're not going to stop recruiting you because we think you're a great kid from a great family and a really, really good football player. So and we've seen, I've got a list in front of me. I'm going to talk about other recruitments where they were committed elsewhere. And Kirby Smart said, I don't care. I don't care. You're our guy. You're the one we want. We're going to keep pushing for you. And maybe a lot of people don't think that we're going to flip you, but we're going to. Now, they don't flip every single guy they want. I know I mentioned earlier they get every single guy. They don't. They don't get every single guy, but they do get most. I have no problem saying that. Again, last year, KJ Bolden. And of course, NIL is going to be a big deal with all these kids, all these 5 stars. If you can get paid at the next level and use your image and likeness, you're going to try. Of course, right? So NIL had something to do with it, but he said, prior that he took less NIL money to go to Georgia than other places. And it's because Georgia sold him of the development and that they're going to turn him into a possible first-round pick. That's what, at the end, won out for Georgia over Florida State for KJ Bolden. But Chauncey Bowens was committed to Florida. Del McGee loved him from the start. They pushed for him, got him to flip. Nasir Johnson as well, defensive lineman from Dublin High School. Florida State got him to commit. Georgia said, we don't care. You know what? We want to go after this in-state kid. We want to bring him on. And they did. They won out. The 23 class. Remember Raylan Wilson? Remember his recruitment? He was a 5-star linebacker from Tallahassee. I thought Georgia was going to get him originally. He committed to Michigan over Georgia. And I told you, and I told everyone on Dawg Post that Georgia's probably going to win out here. Glenn Schumann is not going to walk away and say, man, I lost out to Michigan for my number one target. No, they're going to keep pushing. They don't care. They don't care if you're committed elsewhere. And at the same time, they do a great job of keeping their guys on board. They know that their best prospects, their best commitments are still, kind of open to other schools in a way. If they haven't signed yet, they're still up for grabs. Ellis Robinson had a massive push from Miami and other schools. I mean, just about everyone is still hearing from schools. It just depends on if they're 100% committed, 95, 90, 50, barely committed at all. At the end of the day, Georgia gets these guys to sign when it matters the most. But Raylan Wilson was the guy that Glenn Schumann and Kirby said, no, we don't care that you committed to us and that we came in second. We're not going to finish in second for you. We want you badly. They went out and they got him. Anthony Evans, a wide receiver that I think we could see a lot of next year. Georgia went head-to-head with Oklahoma originally. Anthony Evans said, I'm going to commit to Oklahoma. And Kirby and the Dogs are like, no, dude, no. You're going to come here. You're going to come to Athens. And they got him. I mean, that's just what it was. They didn't care that they missed out. Kid wasn't signed. And they said, we're going to keep recruiting you. And we're going to end up landing you. And they did. Gabe Harris, the guy who's who flashed a little bit last year as a true freshman outside linebacker from Valdosta. Ended up playing at IMG Academy, but he committed to Florida State early in the process. Georgia evaluated him more, and they said, you know what? We like this kid. He's athletic for 6'3", 250. He can rush the quarterback. We're going to start turning the heat up on this kid. And they get him. They didn't care that he was committed early in the process. Michael Williams committed to USC. This is a great example. That's a kid everyone wanted. From Columbus, Georgia. 5-star pass rusher, edge defender. Now he's one of the best players on the defense, but at the time, he's a top 10 player in the country. And he committed to Southern Cal over Georgia, just like Justice Terry just did, except he flipped to Southern Cal. Michael Williams originally committed to Southern Cal, and Georgia said, no, we're going to keep at this. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep recruiting you. We're going to keep recruiting you hard. And they got him. They didn't care that he was committed to Southern Cal. Dalen Everett, it's another example. And there's a lot. And this could be a 20-minute video on guys that were committed elsewhere. And Kirby said, no. We're going to keep recruiting you because you haven't signed. You're uncommitted to us. And everyone, we think is going to sign with us. They're committed now, but we still have to recruit those guys and keep them on board. But yeah, Dalen Everett was committed to Clemson. When Brent Venables went to Oklahoma, he was the defensive coordinator for the Tigers. Dalen Everett said, you know what? I'm going to start looking elsewhere. Georgia was a top team in his recruitment, and they stayed in touch with him, stayed in contact. Boom, he opens up his recruitment, decommits from Clemson, commits to Georgia, and is going to be a multi-year starter and will be a key member of Georgia's secondary this year. Jermaine Burton, I know Georgia fans don't like Jermaine Burton. I get it, but at the time, dude was a big Matt DeBerry guy. Probably still is. But he was committed to Miami and LSU before committing to Georgia, and that was a big deal. Georgia liked him a lot. And Carson Beck was even, helping recruit Jermaine Burton to Georgia. Started out at Hateville Charter, then went to IMG Academy, then to Marietta, then played out west. He was all over the place. But yeah, he committed to 2 other programs before he ended up at Georgia. But Georgia pushed for him, and they got him late in the process because they recruited him as a freshman and stayed in touch with him for years and were able to get him. I know this because he tagged me in those commitment tweets to LSU and to Miami years and years ago. George Pickens, you want another great example? George Pickens was committed to Auburn. I felt like the whole time. I knew that signing day, the night before that, Georgia, they loved George Pickens and they wanted him. Of course, Jaden Hazelwood was committed to Oklahoma at the time. So I knew that Georgia was trying to get in late. I did not expect him to flip to Georgia on signing day. That's one of the very rare moments where, I heard rumblings right before it was supposed to happen. So I had to kind of immediately type up something. I didn't have time. I didn't figure it out ahead of time and prepare with the story. That's when I had to jump on. But that was a big deal because Georgia stayed in touch with him and they won him over because they never gave up. The kid lived in Alabama, was committed to Auburn for the longest time. And you knew there was interest in Georgia, and they had him on campus, and he liked Georgia. But him flipping was, just showed how great that staff already was. And that was years ago of recruiting and staying on their guys and not giving up on their top targets. Quay Walker, everyone remembers him flipping the Tennessee hat across the Cripps County gym auditorium. But he was originally committed to Alabama early in the process. And then he opened up his recruitment and then ended up at Georgia. So that's another guy that they just stayed on, an in-state kid that originally said that he wanted to play out of state. And they said, no, we're going to keep pushing here and stay in contact. They didn't give up. They got him, and he was a big member of that 2021 national championship team. So the examples are there. But at the same time, you have to remember that, again, none of his commitments and guys on the current commit list are signed either. So they do a good job of holding off other teams and programs. They had to hold off teams for Amarius Mims, not only in the recruiting process, but in the transfer portal as well. They had to hold on to Jacob Eason. Jacob Eason was giving Florida a lot of thought. He was committed to Georgia, never officially decommitted, but he took, I think, 2 serious visits to Florida and basically made an announcement of Georgia over Florida right before getting on a plane, I think, and heading back to Georgia and starting his career in January. So he was committed, under Mike Bobo and Mark Richt, but then the coaching change happens. Kirby comes in. Kirby has to hold on to him. But at the same time, Florida came in hard, and Jacob Eason was taking a really strong look. So they held on to Jacob Eason. They held on to Broderick Jones. They held on to a lot of different guys. That's why Kirby and this staff are elite. That's why they're the best of the best. One reason why. Just one reason why. And it's because they recruit guys whoever they want. They don't care who's committed or who's not. They'll never give up on a top target. Never. No matter who they're committed to. Them, if they're open, committed somewhere else, they don't care. And they will never give up. They are relentless. And that's why they built a machine in Athens, Georgia that might win a third national championship in 4 years this fall if everything goes according to plan to the staff and the players. Thanks for watching this video. You can read more about this topic and a lot of other great stuff over on Dawg Post. You can sign up to our newsletter. It's free. That link is right down below. It's free to read a lot of other stories we have on the site. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you on the website.